It starts with a whisper, so faint you almost miss it. But then it grows. A presence you can't explain, a memory you don't remember. Have you ever felt like the past isn't just behind you, but watching you, waiting to pull you back into something you can't escape? Tonight, on the Dread Files, we uncover a case that defies logic, a file that shouldn't exist, a name erased from reality, and a detective whose life begins to unravel the moment he opens it. By the end of this episode, you'll be asking yourself one question. What if you're not the one investigating the mystery, but the mystery is investigating you? Don't look away. Don't stop listening, because what's coming next might just stay with you forever. Detective John Grayson thought he'd seen it all in his 20 years on the force, but nothing prepared him for the night he found a file on his desk, one that would make him question everything he knew about the world and himself. Detective John Grayson was no stranger to the macabre. For 20 years, he'd worked through cases that could drive lesser men mad, grisly murders, unsolved disappearances, and the oddities of human nature that lurked beneath the surface of the everyday. But this case? This one was different. It started one late evening when the clock struck 10:30. The office was dim, his desk buried under a mountain of unsolved files, the air thick with the scent of old paper and coffee. And then he found it. A file. One he didn't remember opening, let alone assigning. A case marked Missing Persons, October 3rd, 1973. I've never worked on this case. Why is it here? He skimmed the case details, blinking at the oddity of it all. A woman named Laura Hemsworth vanished 50 years ago, never to be seen again. The file was thorough, disturbingly so, with police reports, witness statements, and a list of detectives who had worked the case. And there was one detail that stood out. Detective Sarah Lynch. She was the lead detective. But no, I've never heard of her. Grayson's fingers trembled slightly as he turned the page. Each name, each word felt foreign, as though they didn't belong. But what unsettled him most was the photograph stuck to the last page. A grainy image of a woman, her eyes hollow, her face pale. It was as if she had been taken from another world entirely. And beneath it, a chilling message. Detective Lynch, deceased. Grayson couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The longer he looked at the file, the more his curiosity gnawed at him. He had to know more. The very idea that a missing persons case from 50 years ago was still unsolved, still untouched, it didn't sit right with him. The next morning, Grayson set out to track down the leads in the case. He visited the local library first, where the original police reports had been archived. But as he pulled the records, he found something that sent a chill down his spine. The names on the report, the witnesses, none of them were in the system. No one had any recollection of them. Even Detective Lynch's file was absent from the official records, like they had never existed. This doesn't make sense. Where did all the information go? Who erased it? As the days went on, Grayson's obsession with the case deepened. The more he searched, the more details emerged. But with each new discovery, something strange began to happen. His life began to shift, slowly at first, unnoticeable changes that felt wrong. Yeah? Detective Grayson here. Wait, who's this? No, I don't know you. He received strange phone calls from people he didn't recognize, colleagues who didn't remember working with him, old cases he had no memory of solving. And then, the worst part, people who had once been a part of his life were gone. His old partner, Detective Lynch, had been erased from existence. No one had ever heard of her, not even the police records. And worse, the detectives who had worked on this case. All of them. Dead? How? Grayson dug deeper. He was convinced there was a sinister force at play, something supernatural. But the more he tried to break through the veil, the more the case pulled him in. He found himself retracing the steps of Detective Lynch, visiting the locations she'd been to, staring at the same pages she had. Each time he felt as if the file was pushing him toward something, guiding him with a relentless force. Grayson's mind began to crack under the weight of his obsession. The lines between reality and the case blurred. He would wake up in places he didn't remember going, see faces he couldn't recognize. And then, one night, it happened. As he was reviewing the final pages of the file, he found a new entry, a handwritten note in the margin. "Grayson, you're next." "What? Who wrote this? This doesn't make sense." That's when it hit him. The file, the Dread file. It wasn't just a collection of information. It was a living, breathing entity, one that had been altering reality itself. The names in the file had been shifting, rewriting themselves, pulling him into the very events he was investigating. And now, Grayson was no longer a bystander in the story. He was part of it. He realized he had become the final piece of the puzzle. His life, the detective, the case, everything, had been carefully crafted to lead him to this point. He was no longer the investigator. He was the next victim. As Grayson stumbled into the night, the realization hit him like a freight train. He had never been solving the case. He was the case. The file didn't just record his life, it controlled it. The detectives who died, the names that had disappeared, they were all part of a horrific game, one where he was always meant to be the next victim. The file had been rewritten again and again, and now he was trapped in it, a prisoner to the very case he had set out to solve. Grayson, whispering, This isn't real. It can't be." And so, Detective Grayson became just another name in the Dread files, a case that never truly ended, a mystery that would never be solved, trapped in an eternal loop of shifting realities with no way out but to keep investigating, and becoming the next entry. Sometimes, the hardest cases to solve are the ones that you're part of, and sometimes the worst thing you can do is open a file that's been waiting for you all along. Thank you for listening to the Dread Files. Join us next time for more terrifying tales that blur the line between reality and nightmare. Until then, keep your doors locked. You never know who or what might be looking at you from the other side. So, what do you think? Could you resist opening the Dread file? Or would curiosity pull you in like it did Detective Grayson? I'd love to hear your thoughts. What would you do in his shoes? Drop a comment below and let's keep the conversation going. And hey, if you enjoyed unraveling this mystery with me, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to make sure you never miss another chilling tale. Give this episode a thumbs up if it sent shivers down your spine, and share it with someone who loves a good mystery. Until next time, keep your eyes open and your doors locked. See you soon in the shadows of the Dread Files.